What if there was a way to know what would go viral before it went viral? You can probably imagine how useful that would be for someone like me who is trying to grow a channel. But is it possible? And if so, how would you do it? Well, today we're gonna find out, because thanks to artificial intelligence, we now actually can predict what will go viral. And I don't just mean for videos or tweets or whatever. I mean we can actually use AI to predict what will go viral across all of social media. Because it turns out that virality has a lot more to do with the underlying data than it does with any one particular platform. Take a look at this graph. Do you know what it is? Well, here's a hint. This is the number of shares per day. Okay, you got it. It's a meme. But memes aren't limited to Reddit, right? They spread everywhere. That's why it is so important to understand the data behind virality, because with enough data, you can actually predict how something will spread. And that's exactly what researchers at a company called Zuck did in a recent paper, where they basically built an AI that predicts how things will go viral across the entire internet. The first step was to collect data from 20 different sources. These include popular websites and social media platforms like Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, and many more. So far so good, but there's one problem. Just because two things appear on the same website doesn't mean that they are related. For example, Elon Musk tweeting about Tesla and Elon Musk tweeting about Dogecoin are completely different stories, even though they come from the same source. So the first thing they need to do is figure out which stories actually belong together. They accomplished this by training another AI specifically for this task. It looks at the text and metadata of articles and uses an algorithm called Louvain to group similar articles together. This gave them 89,000 topics, which they then aggregated into 3,700 broader themes. Now they had to collect data about how these themes spread through the internet. To do this, they used a tool called Brandwatch, which scrapes the web for mentions of these themes. In total, they collected data on 13 million mentions across 14 terabytes of data. Now it's finally time to train their main AI. To do this, they used a machine learning algorithm called XBoost. If you've never heard of XGBoost, well, you might have heard of its slightly less technical cousin, Extreme. XBoost is an extremely versatile algorithm that can be applied to a variety of tasks, from predicting housing prices to detecting fraud. But in this case, it's going to help us predict virality. The inputs to this algorithm are the 13 million data points they collected earlier. Each data point describes a mention of one of the 3,700 themes on a particular day. So for example, we might have a data point that looks like this. On January 15, 2023, the theme Bitcoin was mentioned 126 times on Twitter, 69 times on Reddit, 31 times on Facebook, and so on. Using this data, XBoost is able to learn how each theme spreads across the different platforms. It also uses the Louvain algorithm again to cluster the platforms into groups, based on how similar they are. As it turns out, Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp form one group, while Twitter, Reddit, and Telegram form another. And by the way, YouTube isn't in either of these groups. It forms its own. That makes sense, because YouTube is fundamentally different from the other platforms. It's not really a social network. It's more of a search engine. Anyway, now that the algorithm has finished training, we can ask it some questions. For example, we could ask it how the theme ChatGPT would spread if it were a trending topic on Twitter. And as you can see, the answer is pretty much exactly what happened in reality. Pretty impressive. But now it's time to take it up a notch, because that was only a hypothetical example. We're about to find out whether the AI can accurately predict what actually went viral. To do this, they first selected 100 random themes and then manually labeled them as either viral or non-viral. They did this by looking at the top 5% of mentions for each theme and determining whether or not they were widely reported in mainstream media. They repeated this process until they had 50 viral themes and 50 non-viral themes. They then fed these labels back into the model and asked it to predict whether a new theme would go viral based on the following criteria. First, the theme needs to be mentioned at least once on Twitter and at least once on Reddit. Second, it can't have been mentioned in the past 7 days. And third, it has to be mentioned at least 5 times on one of the platforms. Wi-Fi. Well, that's just an arbitrary threshold. The authors just felt that 5 mentions was enough to make the topic worth looking into. After setting all this up, they let the AI loose, and here's what it came up with. It identified 6 topics that were highly likely to go viral and 5 topics that were highly likely to not go viral. Now it's time to find out whether the AI was right. And in order to do that, we're going to have to wait. That is because it takes several weeks for most viral topics to gain enough mentions to reach a conclusion. But eventually the results came in and the AI was mostly right. 5 out of the 6 topics it predicted would go viral actually did go viral. And 3 out of the 5 topics it predicted wouldn't go viral actually didn't go viral. That's 83% accuracy, which is actually better than human experts. So now that we know the AI can accurately predict virality, let's test it out. I found 5 viral topics from the paper and made 5 predictions of my own. Here's how it works. Each color represents a different platform and the size of the bubble represents the number of mentions. So for example, this purple bubble shows that on January 18, 2023, the theme was mentioned 35 times on Twitter. Anyway, this is what I came up with. These 5 topics should explode in popularity over the next few weeks. Let's find out whether I'm right. Okay, let's start with SpaceX. I think this is going to go viral. Why? Well, SpaceX is constantly in the news and they have a massive Twitter following. They're also currently in the middle of a rocket launch. Everything is lining up perfectly for this to go viral. Next up is Steve Jobs. Now this one is a little less obvious. He's obviously a well-known figure, but it's been a while since he was in the news. However, recently Apple released a movie about his life. This combined with the fact that a new iPhone is being released later this year makes me think that this will be a viral topic. Next is the Super Bowl. This one is a no-brainer. Sports always go viral. Finally, we have Avengers and Netflix. Again, this one is pretty obvious. The Avengers are a huge part of pop culture and Netflix has a habit of buying up popular franchises. But here's the kicker. The AI says that the viral peak for both of these topics will happen on the same day, February. This means that on February we're gonna have 4 viral topics instead of 2. But there's still one question I have. What about YouTube? Does the AI think that this will go viral on YouTube? Well, unfortunately, I couldn't find that data in the paper, but luckily there is a way to find out. You see, when you upload a video to YouTube, you can add a title and a description. Well, the secret is to feed these titles and descriptions to the AI, and it will tell us how viral the topic is on YouTube. So let's try it out. Here are the titles and descriptions I wrote for 4 of my videos. Can you guess which ones the AI thinks will go viral? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, according to the AI, this video has the highest chance of going viral. So hopefully it's right. If you want to play around with the code for this video, check out the link in the description. Also, if you want to try out the AI for yourself, there is a cool website that lets you do that. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.